पृथिवी शान्तिरन्तरिक्षगं शान्तिर्द्यौः शान्तिर्दिशः शान्तिरवान्तर दिशा शान्तिरग्निः शान्तिर्वायुः शान्तिरादित्यः शान्तिश्चन्द्रमा शान्तिर्नक्षत्राणि शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिर्वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्गौः शान्तिरजा शान्तिरश्वः शान्तिः पुरुषः शान्तिर्ब्रह्म शान्तिर्ब्राह्मणः शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः शान्तिर्मे astu shantihi. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu. Sarve santu niramayaha. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. Ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Sarvastaratu durgani. Sarvo bhadrani pashyatu. Sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu. Sarvas sarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amrutam Gamaya Aviravirmayedhi Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Te Namam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. Let's read verse number 11 together. Chintam aparimeyancha pralayantam upashritaha kamopabhoga parama etavat iti nishchitaha. Beset with immense cares, ending only with death, regarding gratification of sensual enjoyment as their highest aim, and convinced that this is all, and so on. This will continue. We are seeing that in this chapter, Krishna is describing the characteristics of people who are oriented towards spiritual life. He calls them those who have Daivi Sampat, the divine qualities, or divine treasures, literally. And those people who don't feel that spiritual call, who in fact feel the opposite call, something that takes them away from God, away from the highest. And such people, he calls them as Asuri Sampat, those with demon-like qualities. And of course, in this chapter, in the beginning, he gives in 3 verses the qualities connected with those spiritual seekers. Because that topic has been discussed in different ways in earlier chapters, here he just mentioned them. But he's elaborating pretty much most of the remaining chapter on how not just lack of interest in spiritual life, but interest in anything that takes them away from the spiritual ideal. How does it manifest in such people? People with, in the words here, Asuri Sampat, demoniac qualities. And we've already seen a few. So in this verse he says, beset with immense cares, ending only with death, regarding gratification of sensual enjoyment as the highest aim. So what we are expected to do while all this description is being given, it's almost like Krishna is holding up 2 mirrors in front of us. That this is what you will see if you have qualities ideal for spiritual life. And this is what you will see if you have qualities which take you away from spiritual life. And we have to figure out for ourselves in which mirror are we able to see our best reflection. Now, it's possible that many will find that there are some qualities of Daivi Sampat within us and some qualities of Asuri Sampat, which is quite, because pretty much the lives of many people struggling in life, it's a mixed bag. By mixed bag, I mean that we have certain strengths and we have certain weaknesses. Which is okay, which is what a normal human being generally is. The challenge is that these strengths and these weaknesses are not carved in stone. They are very dynamic qualities. So if I don't try to preserve my strengths, I will lose them. It's like if you don't use it, you lose it. So we have to be aware of the strengths that we have. And every one of us, there is not a single person in this world who can say, I have only weaknesses, I have no strength. That's not true. There's always something within us in which we are good, which is a strong point within us. But then also, there are certain weaknesses. Now, a sane person, a truly sane person is one who is able to look within and have a correct assessment. Yes, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. And as I said, these are not carved in stone. So what I need to do is, if I do not make a conscious effort to preserve my strengths, there is the risk that I might lose them. If I don't make a conscious effort to remove my weaknesses, they will increase in number as well as intensity. And therefore, there is, as sometimes they say, there is no holiday in spiritual life. If it's stagnant, it's never really stagnant. You are either going back or you're going forward. So that's the only choice we have. And that's why this chapter is very important. Because with every description, we can try to see to what extent is this true of my life. And if we find that, yes, even some of these asuri qualities, maybe I'm able to see a little bit of reflection in them, then I know that I need to now turn the tide. I need to somehow find a way to remove this and cultivate more of those Daivi Sampat. That's the purpose of this chapter. So here he, for instance, says, the stress, the anxieties and worries that we have, sometimes we just take these for granted. We just think that's what life is. We just look around and mostly find everybody is stressed out, everybody is anxious. So that becomes a default human condition, and which many people think the only time all this will end is with death. Now, those of us who understand life and existence from the Gita's wisdom, we know that really it won't end with death. Because what might end with death is the physical suffering I have will end with death. Because the body, death, what is death? Other than this physical body becomes non-functional. It no longer does what it is supposed to do. And it's not just temporarily, permanently. Well, that's death. But our worries and anxieties and pain don't simply come from the body. They also come from the mind. And death is not the death of the mind. So from the Gita's perspective, we know that even with death, our worries and anxieties will not end because they belong to the mind, not simply to the body. But all of these, how much of our worries and anxieties are related to gratification or sensual enjoyment as the highest aim? Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't have any desire for gratification. But is that, how high on my priority list is this gratification or enjoyment? There is a beautiful verse in Kathopanishad when, we won't go into the detail, but there is this young boy named Nachiketa, and he wants this highest spiritual wisdom. And to test him, the teacher says, don't ask this, it's too tough, too intricate. Even many people have tried to understand it, very few people get it. Instead of that, here is an option. I give you long life, live for thousands of years. I'll give you all the wealth that you need. You'll have all the power. You'll be the greatest emperor on this planet. You have all the wealth, you lack nothing. All enjoyments, all wealth, everything will be yours. But don't ask for this spiritual wisdom. And then this young boy, to him this offer was made. He says, it's a beautiful in Sanskrit, Shvobhava martyasya yadanta kaitat sarvendriyanam jarayanti tejaha. In Sanskrit, it means that I don't want any of these enjoyments, because he says, what do these enjoyments do? That today they are here, tomorrow they are not. All that they end up doing ultimately is exhaust the vitality of the senses. Eventually, because aging is a process, the amount of enjoyment we can do when the body is strong, when the mind is strong, when the body becomes feeble, the mind becomes feeble, that the avenues for enjoyment become less. And so what this young boy, he rejects that offer and says, I don't want this offer, however tempting it might seem at first sight. But what it just ends up doing is, it's so temporary. It doesn't last. But spiritual wisdom is one thing. If I get it, it solves the problem once and for all. And so that's another one choice that as spiritual seekers we may be called upon to do. That do I want an instant result which may not last for long, or do I want a result which may take some time in coming, but when I get it, it'll be permanent? And so whether we want a quick fix or we want a permanent fix, that's essentially the idea. And so we have to see how much of our worries are related to just making ourselves happy. So I have a little problem sometimes with when we speak about what's written in our constitution, pursuit of happiness. Now, there's a lot of commentary that can be written about it. But should pursuit of happiness be a goal in itself? Can happiness be a goal, or happiness is a byproduct of achieving something that you want to achieve? So sometimes when happiness itself becomes the ultimate goal, then it can take a form of what they call hedonism. And then that you reach that kind of a paradox that the more you seek it, the more it eludes you. So happiness is something like that. The more you want to be happy, the more it will seem out of reach. On the other hand, the more you do something that is meaningful, that is purposeful, that brings fulfillment, then happiness will automatically come. So that's the tricky part. So those people who have this demoniac qualities, for them, gratification of sensual enjoyment, that is the topmost priority. That comes before everything else. And convinced that this is all, that there is nothing more in life other than just doing whatever it takes to make yourself happy. Sometimes even some people go to the extent, and they'll be like even great asuras, if you like, is that my goal is to make myself happy, even if in the process other people become unhappy. I don't care, because my happiness is supreme. Those who are a little bit of less asura quality, they might say, I want to be happy, but I don't want to make other people unhappy. So there are, as I said, the levels of how much of a demon I am will vary. But it's good to recognize that these kind of variations exist in life. Verse 12. Ashapasha shatair baddhaha kama krodha parayanaha ihante kama bhogartham anyayenartha sanchayan. Bound by 100 ties of expectation and given to lust and anger, they strive to collect by foul means hoards of wealth for sense gratification. So that's the thing. If sensual enjoyment becomes the supreme goal, then such a person will resort to any means to make that goal attainable. If I then need to have more wealth in order to be happy, I will then use ethical or unethical means to attain that wealth. And why would I do that? Bound by 100 ties of expectation and given to lust and anger. Asha, there is a often quoted text, it comes in the Bhagavata, which says that Asha hi paramam dukkham. The same word Asha is used there. Asha hi paramam dukkham, nairashyam paramam sukham. That is, the greatest misery in life is expectation. And the greatest joy in life is living without expectation. Now, this sentence, this teaching can sometimes be misunderstood. So, living without expectation doesn't mean that you shouldn't work hard. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't strive for excellence. That's not what is the idea. The idea is have a high goal, strive to attain it, do the best you can. But after having done your best, the results will come. If it is going to happen, it will happen. If it is not going to happen, it won't happen. Expectation means that whether you may or may not work, but you are expecting a certain result. What this expectation does is sometimes you will get what you expect, and that will make you happy. But just as much, sometimes you may not get what you expect. And if you do not get what you expect, you're going to be unhappy. So by creating an expectation in our heart, we are opening up the possibility of making ourselves miserable. On the other hand, if I do what needs to be done, if I work hard, if I do everything possible that I can do, then what is going to happen will happen. The tricky part is this, to recognize that expecting something or not expecting something does not change the outcome. So if something is going to happen, it will happen whether I expect it or not. And if something is not going to happen, it will not happen whether I expect it or not. So expectation in that sense is a completely useless activity. It's not only useless, I open the possibility of making myself miserable. So why would we knowingly, willingly make ourselves miserable? Not only that, it's not just that we may make ourselves miserable. We may miss out on joy as well. It's like this. If I'm expecting something to work out correctly, and it works out correctly, no big deal. You are expecting it anyway. So better don't expect anything. If you don't expect anything, and then if it works out, you can be even more happy. So not creating any expectations, we open within our heart the possibility of a greater joy or the possibility of not being miserable. I got confused with the construction of the sentence. Okay. So bound by 100 ties of expectation, that's what really creates bondage within us. And lust and anger, desire, and when the desire is obstructed, anger is the result. They strive to collect by foul means hoards of wealth for sense gratification. Now, earning wealth, it's very important here, by foul means. Anyayena artha sanchayan. Making money, earning wealth through dharma, through honest ethical means, that's not against spiritual life. Sometimes people think, oh, if I now, what is this life? I have to work hard to earn money. Of course, there is nothing unspiritual about earning money itself. The question is how you're doing it. If you can do it in ethical means, if you do it without having to compromise with truthfulness, honesty, with being true to yourself, holding on to your principles, that kind of wealth is in fact one of the artha, one of the purusharthas, the four ways by which people try to strive for fulfillment in life. One of them is called artha. And artha means wealth. But attaining that wealth, acquiring that wealth through ethical means and using it in an ethical way, that is not contrary to spiritual life. And this is important because in many traditions, poverty gets glorified to some extent. In fact, a few years ago, this liberation theology became a big it had a lot of followers. It's kind of cooled down a little bit now, but the glorification of poverty, somehow that God, when we speak about, say, God loves the poor more, people automatically go to then corollary to be God hates the rich. Now, the truth is, neither of them. God loves all equally. So I think even when such statements are made about glorification of poverty or suffering and so on, we have to understand it in a proper context. Otherwise, we'll have a very distorted idea of where does wealth and lack of wealth fit into a spiritual life. Verse 13. Idamadya maya labdham imam prapse manoratham idamasti idamapi me bhavishyati punardhanam. So this is how such people think. This has been gained today by me. This desire I shall obtain. This wealth is mine, and this other too will be mine. So again, this is the way what we say a worldly person think. Oh, this is what I've got. Tomorrow I'll get some more. And this thing is mine, and I will get some more. So with this way of thinking, what it does is it creates a kind of a chain reaction. So if this is what I have, and if I want more, and then if I see someone else has more of what I have less of, then I either hate that person or I feel jealous of that person. And if the only way for me to get what I want is to push somebody back, I might even do that. So it just opens the door to, in some sense, dehumanizing ourselves. As we'll see later, Krishna is trying to show that people who think like this may have a human form. We might still technically call them human beings, but by their behavior, by their way of thinking and doing, they are not very different from beasts. So again, the way the human understanding of the evolutionary ladder is, we somehow think that we are better or higher than animals. No one knows whether that's true or not, but at least the way we think about evolution, and because it's a human explanation of the experience, in the evolutionary ladder, we are higher than the animals. As I sometimes say, we don't know. If dogs have their own way of thinking about the world, in their evolutionary ladder, maybe dogs might be higher than them. We don't know, because we look at everything from our perspective. In any case, in the way we think about evolution, we are higher than animals. Now, what if those who have a human form but still are behaving not like human beings are supposed to in an ideal situation, but exhibiting more of animal tendencies rather than human tendencies in a human form? And as Krishna will say, what's the point if I'm being an animal in a human body? I might become a better animal in an animal body rather than in a human body. And so such people then, when they are reborn, they will be reborn as animals, because it's better for an animal to exhibit, it's easier for an animal to exhibit animal tendencies in an animal body.
it makes it just so much more simpler. They say that one of the years ago I read, I don't know how true it is, that a crow apparently um, has has a brain which is much smarter than what that body is capable of doing. Um, and I don't know how they figured that out, but that was one of the ways they said that. And one of the ways these crows are kind of so restless, always wanting to do, because there is so much more that the brain wants to process, but the body is incapable of doing it. And it could be the reverse also. The body is capable of doing it, they don't have the brain to do it. So when there is a mismatch between what the person wants and what the brain is capable of, and what the kind of body they have, then there is trouble. And so one of the ways then the karma operates is that such people then, um, when a time comes to acquire a new body in a new birth, what karma does is, based on what kind of karma is to be worked out in that body, a body which is suitable for working out that specific karma, that body the person will get. So, although sometimes we say that we choose the body and the environment in which we are born, it's not in the sense of, oh, here are these 10 options. Which one do you want to be reborn as? It's not that kind of a choice. What it simply means is that our own past karma, whichever is ready to yield fruits, that's why it's called prarabdha. So that karma comes up, and then just it's a natural selection. The nature has a way then of finding, it's a little bit, think about it this way. These employment agencies, when you register with them and you have your resume given to them, and then they find your best placement based on your resume and your needs and so on. This is a little bit like that. So whatever karma I have, and it's time for me when this body goes away and the next batch of karma comes up ready to be worked out, then nature has a way, generally it gets it right, sometimes it doesn't, but generally it gets it right. It tries to find a body and an environment best suited for that karma to be worked out. That's how it works out. That's why it is said in the Gita, we saw it in an earlier chapter, that when a spiritual seeker, say, passes away without having realized God, without having attained God, what would happen to that person? Now, clearly, if the person has been an earnest, sincere spiritual seeker, it obviously means that the person has tried to live a good life, an ethical life, a spiritual life. So this person has acquired a good set of karmas. So if this person dies without having attained the goal, then this person is born, as Krishna points out, in an environment, in a future birth, which is suitable for this person to continue his or her spiritual quest. So every time you don't have to start from scratch. So if I made some progress, it's possible for me then in a future birth to continue from where I stopped. On the other hand, if I have, instead of making progress, I have gone backwards. So now I'm in a human body, but I've lived in such a way that my life is not very different from an animal. Then a next birth, it will give me an animal body. You said, well, this is better suited for what you want to do. That's the idea. So if, and as you will see in the later verse, he said, people who have these tendencies, these asuri, demoniac tendencies, if they don't make a conscious effort to change that, then in future births, they will get a body ideally suited to behave like beasts. That's the idea. Verse 14. Asau maya hata shatruhu hanishye chaparanapi ishvaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi.
That enemy has been slain by me, and others too I will slay. I am the Lord. I am full of enjoyments. I am successful, powerful, and happy. Again, you can see with how boastful, how destructively ambitious people can be. And this is how their ambition, their vengeance, their anger, their pride, their egoism will manifest in all of these ways. And people who have these kind of ways of thinking and doing and relating, they are the people who suffer a lot. So, some years ago, I was in some college, and one of the topics we discussed there was success. What is meant by success? Because every one of us wants to be successful. And it's good to ask ourselves, what does success really mean? When I look back at my life, say 30, 40, 50 years from now, what do I wish to see in my life or in me which will make me feel I've had a successful life? Is it in terms of how much property I hold, how much money I have, what kind of relationships I have built, how much name recognition I have, and so on, or how much knowledge, how much scholarship I have? So what would be my parameters for success? Again, there is no one definitive answer to this, but it's helpful for us to ask that question to ourselves, because depending on what answer you get, you will have a better understanding of your own self. You will know that in your mental world, what is important to you? What are your priorities? Because sometimes when we put things like very abstract way, well, have some principles, have some priorities, it just seems too abstract. But when you ask yourself a little bit more concrete questions like this, like, what does success mean to me? What do I really want in life? Because as I said, if happiness and fulfillment is what we want, sometimes we just mindlessly conclude that automatically, for instance, that more the money, more the happiness. And that doesn't mean that money will bring you necessarily misery. So happiness can still come. But is there a simple equivalence, a simple connection between wealth and happiness? And probably not. Because if it were that simple, then every wealthy person would have been happy. But that's not the case. So again, wealth, happiness may come, may not come. Same thing with regard to everything, whether it's beauty, scholarship, recognition, fame, strength, whatever it is. You will see that this is a pretty slippery subject of what does success mean. So think about it. Verse 15. Adhyo bhijanavansmi konyosti sadrusho maya yakshe dasyami modishya ityajnana vimohitaha. I am rich and of noble birth. Who else is equal to me? I will sacrifice, I'll make gifts, I will rejoice. Thus, deluded by ignorance, and so on it goes. Again, we see this, many people saying it. Some of our leaders are saying too. So this kind of arrogance, that I am rich, I have the solutions to all problems. Only I can help you, only I can save you. We see it happening. Our political leaders say it. In society we find people saying it, although it is said
in the earlier verse, I am the Lord, it's not in the sense of I am God, although some people probably think that way, but in the sense that, well, I am the boss, like I control. Everyone is under my control. And that's the sometimes the intoxication of power. That's what can come. So all of these things, even when it says I will sacrifice, by sacrifice is really meant doing the yajna or rituals. Now these people, he says or she says here, I will sacrifice, not with the sense of, oh, I want to do some great religious ceremony, but again, it's a being ostentatious about it. I will do this ceremony better than my neighbor does. I will invite more people to do so. And you can see that in many of the public celebrations that are held. In India, many of these pujas that are held, for instance, just recently we had this Durga Puja, the worship of Durga. In Bengal, it's done in a very big scale. There's the worship of Ganesha in Maharashtra, and in different parts of India and different parts of the world, the different religious ceremonies are held, which is great, which is wonderful. It brings people together, and it can be very helpful. But it can also, if you are not careful, the emphasis can change. It can be like, oh, we have a much, for instance, in India, many of these pujas take place in images. And so you can see sometimes a kind of competition which may not be very healthy. It's like, oh, we have a much bigger image than yours. Ours is much grander. We can decorate it in a much better way than you. And so then it just kind of loses the whole spiritual purpose behind all of this. And so when here this person says, I will sacrifice, I'll make gifts, it's not with the idea of great charity or helping, just that I want to make a show of it. I can do it better than anyone because I'm the best. That's the idea. Verse 16. Aneka chitta vibhranta moha jala samavritaha prasaktav kama bhogeshu patanti narakeshu chau. Perplexed by many a fancy, entangled in the net of delusion, and addicted to the gratification of desires, they fall into foul hell. Now, hell, the word that is Sanskrit is called naraka. Now, heaven and hell are terms that come in pretty much almost all major world religions. And there are different ways of understanding it. Oftentimes, they are understood in terms of some place. Heaven, a place where you'll have all kind of joys. Hell, a place where you'll have all kinds of suffering. That's one way of understanding it. But they are better understood, I think, in terms of experience. That if my life is just filled with pain and suffering right now, I'm already in a hell. Or if my life is now filled with happiness and contentment and joy, I can say I'm already in heaven. So to think that there is only one place somewhere where I'll be happy or one place I'll be miserable somehow seems to ignore the fact that happiness and misery don't simply occur in heaven and hell. It is happening everywhere. And sometimes we do use those terms. You say, oh, this is a heavenly place. Oh, this is a hellish existence. We do say that. So I think it's more helpful. At least that definitely seems to be Gita's intent, to not think of heaven and hell in some specific place. That's why that in, I think in Milton's Paradise Lost, it said that the mind is its own place. It can make a heaven out of hell and hell out of heaven. And so really, it's all in the mind. There is a Upanishad called the Amrita Bindu Upanishad, which has this line there. It says, Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha moksha yoho. That is, the mind alone is the cause of our bondage, and the mind alone is the cause of our freedom. Ramakrishna used to say, the bondage is in the mind, the freedom is in the mind also. So, because here is this question that sometimes get asked in Vedanta. We say freedom, moksha, is the goal. Who is the one who becomes free? I once asked that to my Vedanta teacher. I said, who is the one who becomes free? Because the Atman, the spirit, is already free. It's ever free. It's never bound. That's its nature. And the body and mind, they're material after all. They're just going to be destroyed. So the body and mind, they are not conscious. So they don't need any freedom. And the Atman is already free. And so who is the one who gets freedom? Who is the one who gets moksha? And his answer was very nice. And what he said was this: one who thinks I am bound is the one who will become free. And this thinking of my bondage really occurs in my mind. So that is why the mind is the whole problem is in the mind. But there could be problems in the body also. But they are easily surmountable, relatively speaking, compared to the problem in the mind. And so all of these things that are being described in this verse are a lot more to deal with what's going on within our mind and how to deal with it. So we'll stop here today and with verse 16. Do you have any ideas, questions, doubts, comments on what we have seen today?
Namaskar, Maharaj. Just the one that you are referring to, I just want to have a clarity on the terms body, mind, and Atman. So, what is the mind actually like when you are referring to?
Mind is sometimes called Sukshma Sharira, which means the subtle body. So, if this body is made up of material particles which are visible and tangible, the mind is also made of material particles but which are more subtle, Sukshma.
Okay.
So body and mind are both considered material in the Gita's way of thinking. And because they are material, they act and interact upon one another.
So something fancy, but like I just want to know if when we take a Punarjanma, the rebirth, so the same mind will be coming into the body, into this body again?
Yes. Same mind, new body.
New body.
Old mind, new body.
Okay. So the Sukshma Sharira will always be constant?
Which one?
The subtle body?
See, the body, the word body in Sanskrit means sharira. And sharira, literally meaning is shiryate iti shariram, that which wears away. So the subtle body is not constant. It's also material. It has to follow the laws of matter. And one of the laws of matter is it's always changing. The only unchanging entity is non-material, and that's the Atman. And that's why we see that on a daily basis. Sometimes the mind is in a good mood, sometimes in a bad mood. Sometimes it feels strong, sometimes it feels weak. So the mind will change. And ultimately, the mind has to die. So when a person becomes enlightened, that person's, not just the body dies, the mind also dies. Because as long as the mind is alive, you will have to take birth again. If you don't want to be born, the mind has to be killed.
Thank you. This is very clear.
Yeah.
So, Swamiji, if we are praying to the great sages, saints, to Ramakrishna, if their mind has already died, what are we praying to?
And so that's a good question. Let me put it this way. they, okay, how will I explain this? The reason I have difficulty in explaining is this, because your question takes into, well, question begins with the assumption that there are these separate beings and then they have gone and you are still here. And so who am I praying to? Let me put it this way. As long as I am a seeker, these beings are real for me. They are there. They are as much real as I am. So that if you're praying to these great ones, they are as much real as I am. So they have not, okay, let me put it how I think I'm still not very clear. Okay, just imagine, for instance, that let's say I have now become enlightened. And so my mind won't immediately die, because it's not that a person who immediately after enlightenment, this person will immediately disappear. That doesn't happen. So after enlightenment, people do live for some time. So that time their mind is there, body is there. But after the death of an enlightened being, as far as that enlightened being is concerned, everything is finished. Or let me put it better this way. Only the enlightened being knows what has happened to that enlightened being. What the rest of us who are not enlightened, but we do see that after enlightenment, the being is still there. Being is still helping. Even after their passing, we think about Buddha, we think about Jesus, we think about Ramakrishna, Vivekananda. They are still, their presence is still felt. Praying to them, the prayers are still answered, and people find that they are able to make progress and receive benefit from praying. Now, are they really there? Well, really everything is really one. So for that matter, when you speak about asking are they really there, really even you are not there in your present form. Does it make sense? So this is not so much a matter of analysis of who am I praying to. It's a matter of experience, that I pray to them and I see that it works. Does it make sense?
So would the more helpful question be, instead of prayer, who am I?
Well, that is the whole point of this whole book. Okay. Who am I? Yes. You're right. Yeah.
My question is about the expectations, what you said. You said we shouldn't expect much from our deeds, like what we are doing, we shouldn't expect much about the results and what we get. If we get, it's good. If we don't get disheartened. But what about the expectation from our family, from our human beings, who are surrounding us?
Well, that's their problem.
We all have expectations from our parents, from our friends and relatives and everybody. How do we get rid of those expectations and not, even sometimes we get hard from them because we expect from them, right?
That's what I'm saying. So,
and how to control those?
How to control their expectations?
Our own expectations from them.
Don't expect anything. Just the idea is to recognize that I'm going to get what I deserve. I'm not going to get what I don't deserve. What is going to come to me will come to me. What will not come to me will not come to me. My expecting something or not expecting something is not going to externally change the outcome. So I just need to be in life, just do the right thing, do what needs to be done, and the results will take care on their own, because my expecting something doesn't change the outcome other than just making me worried and anxious, that's all. So that's just the observed reality. That's what people have seen. That there is no we don't need to be very theoretical about it. It just we see from life that if we live with expectations, we're always on, we can never be at peace then. That's the idea.
So to continue with that thought, then how can you know how hard to push someone or how hard to push yourself? If you don't have the expectation that you will change for the better or for the worse, or you don't have the expectation that someone else can be better than what they are, then you might not also have any incentive to push them to be better or to push yourself to be better.
You can push yourself. You can push yourself to the utmost to, if it is a goal worth achieving for. You push yourself as much as your body, mind can take you. Because the thing is this, at any given moment, we have to try our best. But our best is not a fixed quantity. So, but at this moment, this is the best I can do. Maybe after 5 years, my best might be even better. But at this moment, if this is something that is worth doing, I must put my best foot forward and try my best. And then, whether you expect or not, what is going to happen is going to happen. The advantage in doing your best is that even if things don't turn out the way you wanted them to, you at least have the satisfaction, I did my best. You know that I could not have done anything more than what I did because that was my best. So doing our best is always a good investment. On the other hand, if I don't do my best and things don't turn out the way they wanted, then I'm always left with this nagging thing. Only if I had tried my best, perhaps it would have been different. So the safest thing is, first determine whether something is a right thing to do, if it is a worthy goal. If it is, try your best. And then results will take care. Because one thing to be remembered is this, that our hard work is oftentimes not the only factor in the success or not of a thing. Because there are often many other factors involved. So we can only do what is within our control. And well, over factors that are not within your control, there is nothing you can do about it. So that's the thing about it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we will stop here today, and when we meet next week, we'll begin with verse number 17. Om Jananim Saratam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhum. This Sunday we'll have Antar Yoga as usual. We'll have reading from members, and there'll be music, prayer, meditation, and reflection, followed by soup, and then a birthday celebration for everyone born in the month of October. So you're all welcome. And we'll continue with the Gita when we meet next week on Wednesday at 7:30. Tuesday and Saturday, our Aarti and meditation will also continue as usual. Conclude with the prayana on page 3.
May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.